Welcome. We are in a very, very important episode of The First Steps of God. I think this is going to be one of my favorites because it's so important. I think it's the whole central point of truth and reality. We are hitting a big giant, actually, in terms of what we're thinking about, a giant of a thought, the importance of a tree. I love this. I love The Lord of the Rings. And The Lord of the Rings, they have very significant trees. They have trees that talk and walk. I just love that. I really want one of those one day, an ent. I want an ent.
An ent,
So,
definitely.
Oh, when I get to heaven, I'm going to have an ent.
And in the Lord of the Rings, aren't the male ones separated from the female ones, aren't they?
And they're missing the ent wives, and all their forest has gone to like shambles because the ent wives sorted them out. And
they needed
them. It's a lovely story.
Yay, they needed that.
And you've got the White Tree of Gondor, haven't you? Like there's that heavenly Númenor place, and then they got that little tree and took it out, and then there's
that is what we need to think about, isn't it? The meaning of this tree of life.
I mean, even the elves live in this incredible, beautiful tree forest land. Just stunning. Trees are often at the heart of fantasy, but I think there may be a reason for that. There's something significant about trees.
Well, and it's like there's the whole Bible begins in this garden, and the first issue that faced it to humanity said, you're free, do what you want, but be careful of this one tree. So it was like the first question, the only question really that the Lord God put to human beings was, there's just one particular tree, and I want to just see how you can cope with a tree. And it was in that case, it was this tree that represents knowledge of right and wrong and good and evil. And he's like, do you trust me with good and evil? Or are you going to use this tree to get your own knowledge of good and evil, make your own mind up about it?
So ever since human beings have said, nope, I'm going to trust my judgment on good and evil, we've really made a bit of a mess of things.
We've made a mess of things, and it was embodied in this sense of a tree. But if you remember, in the Garden of Eden, after they'd done that, there was this other tree called the tree of life. And the Lord said, you cannot touch the tree of life now, because if you ate from that tree, you would live forever. So there's the Bible begins with a story of a tree that has fruit that could make you live forever. And then that's gone. We're like, what's happened to that tree?
Well, I personally don't want to live forever in this current state. I do want to live forever, and I know I am, but not quite in this state.
Not in the world as it is now. We want to fix it. And that's what the Bible goes on to say, is the reason he didn't want us to eat from that tree is because he wants to fix it first. And the world kind of has to die first, then it can be reborn. So, but you've got this idea in your head that there's some sort of tree of life that has got this amazing power. Isn't there this concept even in pagan myths about the
world tree, isn't it?
Yggdrasil, is it?
Yggdrasil, isn't it? Fascinating about that tree in particular, Odin, the king of the gods, he dies by being hung on that tree.
On the world tree.
On the world tree, and that
god who's hung on a tree.
So even in pagan thought, they understand there's something significant. You're going to get someone, we won't do this right now, but you're going to get someone go, so the Christians borrowed it from Greek or from pagan mythology.
That's the explanation.
We'll talk about that another time.
That would be a good one to do another time, to laugh at
origins of these stories.
But it is fascinating, isn't it, that the tree, that idea of a tree, and God has to die on the tree sort of thing, and that there's a dragon, isn't it, at the root of the trees in this myth, and it's gnawing at it because it wants to get rid of this tree, and that's how it can destroy.
The dragon gnaws at the roots.
Wow.
And I just love this idea that you begin with this massive tree story at the beginning of the Bible, and you're just like, the tree of life, how amazing. But then there's this, it's in the background in stories, like, for example, when the Lord in Genesis 18, it's Jesus with two angels, comes to meet Abraham. And Abraham's camping out, and he meets him, it says, by the oak tree of Mamre. Like there's a special tree there. The oak. Look that up. There's special reference to an oak tree. And it's like, it's that tree, the great tree. And then look that up. It comes up at other times, this idea that there's some sort of great tree that's in the lands of the Bible. And when Saul is anointed king, he goes to see this great tree. And there's this notion of the great tree. And then when they build the temple, they have the columns as like trees, like as if trees are at the center of the universe and the structure, because that temple is a model of the universe. And there's the idea that have trees. And do you remember, this is where did they get the wood from?
Well, I mean, if you've read the Golden Legend, that's this collection of medieval thoughts about everything in the Bible, and since, from that point since. And it has a huge bit on the tree.
Okay.
And it has this whole history, and it goes from like the Garden of Eden, there's like a tree left basically from the Garden of Eden. And then it was passed down and it survived the flood. And then it like keeps going, it passes it through, and then it's Mamre, it's the great tree of Mamre. And then Solomon fells it to help build his temple, they have it. And then... But
it's
then,
as if the temple had to be surrounded by something alive, like the tree is all through it.
Yeah, completely wooden panels.
In the Bible, because there's this whole section in the building of the temple where there's like a whole chapter just about getting cedars from Lebanon and bringing them down. And you think, do we need a whole chapter about moving trees around?
Yeah. It's amazing. It's a huge enterprise.
Yeah.
Why is that
important?
Yeah, what's all that
about?
Well,
because there's a verse in the prophets, I think it's Ezekiel, Jeremiah, but we'll find it. And it says that the trees of Lebanon were from the Garden of Eden, planted by God. So it's like those original trees from the Garden of Eden, Solomon paid enormous amounts of money and had these armies built. And we have that beautiful picture, don't we? They're trying to cut down one of these. Because it's like, well, what's the big deal cutting down a tree from Lebanon? And it's like there's armies of people with these trees that are like the biggest trees you could imagine. And like armies of people trying to get them to make this temple from. Yeah. But like PJ's saying, this notion of this great tree, the great tree. And Peter has this weird verse, really weird verse, where he just says, Jesus, when he died on the tree. And you're like, what do you mean, the tree? What? Yeah. Don't you mean
something
a tree?
Very specific?
And he's like, no,
very specific.
He died on the tree. Yeah. Well, what tree was that? So that the cross that it wasn't just any cross. The wood of that cross that he died on was from this tree that had been there since the Garden of Eden. And isn't that a weird thought? And that idea that there's this tree that's there all the way through the story, and then Jesus dies on, and then because the tree of life, it's there in Revelation. You go to the end. So it began with this story of a tree. And then you go
to the beginning of the Bible, right at the very end.
And there's this tree of life that's there in the new creation with fruit. No, the leaves of the tree are for
healing.
The healing of the nations.
Fascinating verse.
That idea that the nations will still be being healed in the new creation.
Every politician today is trying to solve the problem. I mean, certainly in Britain, we're in an absolute mess.
I know.
All our politicians just don't know what to do at the moment. They can't figure things out.
They want the tree of life.
They do.
And they haven't got the tree of life. But I love this comment that was an early church father who said, if the leaves of that tree will heal all the nations, what will the fruit do?
They even watch them in the seasons. They die, the leaves fall off, and then there's they come back to life again. I mean, that's what the whole point of this episode is, actually, isn't it? I mean, the whole point of this episode is that we're looking at the tree, not just a tree, the tree that teaches us everything about reality and teaches us everything about truth, and actually what we're all about, and who God is, that God would hang between heaven, not earth, not just earth, but even the depths of that which we're all fearful of, and rightly should be. And he hangs in that so that we can be united with him and understand life as it really is. He breathes life into all of us, but he gives us life because he hung on that tree. Wow. More of that another time. Bye-bye.